What is your full maiden name?
My full name is Neyse Maria Gomez dos Santos Lloyd Hall.
And now what is your name?
Now my name is Neyse Hall.
Where were you born?
I was born in Salvador, Bahia, Brazil.
Tell me details about your childhood.
Well, there are probably too many details, but I can tell you that my childhood before about age 4, I don't remember a whole lot. I was adopted from Brazil when I was 7. So the childhood before 7 was very poor, very unusual, very foreign to what you've become used to. It was a different life.
What do you remember?
I remember my mother and I remember my siblings. I remember having an older brother, and I remember brothers. I know I was the only girl. I do remember that.
What do you remember about your mom?
Um, One of the clearest memories of my mom was she ate ice all the time. And she was pregnant a lot. Hey, it's a third world country. We don't know what causes babies every 9 months, you know?
What can you tell me about your living conditions and surroundings?
In Brazil, we were very poor. We had, I can remember like a one-room place. Of course, no carpet, no flooring, no running water, no bathroom, no refrigerator. We're talking really poor, like no television, no phone, no radio, none of the luxuries we're used to.
How many people and how many square feet do you think that room had?
Oh, God, I wouldn't remember. Tons of people. God, I don't know. 7, 8 in a probably a 10 by 15 area. Seemed big back then because I was little.
So tell me in details how you came to the USA.
Wow, you don't have an hour, do you? Details. Well, my mother, and when I say my mother, I'm talking about, I guess I'll delineate. My mother is my adopted mom. My biological mother is my mother in Brazil. When I was about 7, my biological mother took me to meet a lady. She had been working for an American lady. She was her maid, and she took me to meet her, and apparently I was so cute that she wanted to bring me to the United States. So I went back and forth to visit her a few times at her apartment, her and her husband, and she had poodles, lots of poodles, which was a real rarity there, seeing these fancy poodles walking around. Poor people don't have pets. You can't afford to even feed yourself, so you wouldn't have, dogs that you had to feed. And I remember my adopted parents. It was an older couple. They were in their 50s, and remember them arguing. And I couldn't speak a word of English, but I knew the arguments were about me. And my mother, my adopted mom, being very headstrong, I could tell she had decided she was going to bring me to the United States, and I could definitely figure out that the man, my adopted dad, poor guy, he was probably 60 years old. The last thing he wanted was a 7-year-old, I'm sure. But my mother paid and got some wonderful documents fabricated. I do remember that, which is funny. I remember going to look like a little garage, dark garage office behind someone's house, and going up these little narrow steps in this little room, and this man had paper and typewriter. This is back before computers, of course, and I even have the documents still. They have bad typewriter marks and whatever. And I remember my mother, my adopted mom, and this little man with little stamps and things, and everybody putting their fingerprints on stuff and people signing stuff. And apparently that was my legal government documents to come to the United States. And that's how I came into this country, with all these funny papers. But I'm legal now. I'm a citizen. So, hey.
How would you
I'm a citizen.
describe?
I'm okay now. But that's, I came to the States and was, started out in Houston, Texas. I remember coming in on the airplane. I'd never felt cold on my skin, and of course I had on little cotton dress, sleeveless dress, and no sweater, nothing, so I was freezing. It was December, and I remember riding in the car to my mom's house and thinking, how amazing, I'm sitting here in somebody's lap, of course. Again, this is 100 years ago, before seatbelts and kids in the back, sitting in the front of a Cadillac, riding down the road in someone's lap, and feeling this warm air coming out of the car vents. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is America. I love it.
What can you tell us about your mom?
My biological mom or my adopted mom?
Your adopted mom. Tell us.
My adopted mom. Well, my adopted mom, again, we had a long time. I could tell you a lot about her. She was a very interesting lady. She was what I thought was what all Americans, when you're from South America, you think all Americans look like people on Peyton Place. This is an old, I don't know what kind of show, like a soap opera kind of, but it played at night. It was back in the day. You know, everybody on there, of course, was blonde, blue-eyed, fair-skinned, and that was my mom. She had white, gray hair, very pale white skin, very light blue eyes, and I remember when I saw her the first time, I was just, oh, that's a real American, oh my gosh, you know, because she looked like the people on Peyton Place, so she totally fit the bill. She was quite an interesting character. She was a person that couldn't take no for an answer, pretty much thought she, you know, would get what she wanted. Very German, very hardworking, very hard-headed, kind of scary sometimes. She, you know, unlike kids of today, you know, it was yes ma'am, no ma'am. There was no yeah. You could get a box on the head for yeah.
And can you remember your dreams as a kid?
I do remember the main dreams that I had as a kid. One of the ones that I always remembered was there was a step in front of our little place where we lived. I guess you'd call it an apartment. And I always remember running off that step, and of course now it would be considered dangerous. It was about 3-4 feet, as I remember, off the ground, and there was no railing, of course. And I can remember dreaming that I would be standing on there and I would run, and as I watched people, I could always fly. And I always remember that dream. I was like, look, this is great, everybody, look, I'm flying. And people would be like, whatever. I'm like, I'm flying. And I really dreamed about flying. Now as an adult, I look back and I think maybe somehow in my brain I felt like I was destined for something else, because I've been very lucky to be here now, coming from there. But I always dreamed that I would be flying above everybody, and it was so real. I wish I could have that dream again. They were wonderful.
So as far as your teenage years, how did that go? And
you know, don't have a lot of good memories of my teenage years. I kind of feel like I was an adult when I was 6 or 7 years old. I really thought I was an adult. I knew a lot of adult things, and you know, I didn't have toys and whatever. My main worry was, am I going to get to eat a meal today? So I didn't really have toys. I don't think I had a great childhood. Now I'm going to cry. Teenage years, really don't have any good memories of my teenage years. I worked a lot. My mom kind of had me working a lot. I did more work than some grown men did, probably.
how many hours would you say?
Oh, it wasn't unusual. I mean, I was expected to get up at, 6 in the morning on Saturday and vacuum the entire house and clean the bathrooms, polish the silver, dust everything in the house, my God, my mom had every kind of annoying knick-knack and figurine and little doodads everywhere. It's like living in a museum sometimes, that, dusting everything. And we're talking, again, German detail, dusting with a little, absolute cleaning. We didn't just vacuum. We had to go around and vacuum all the crevices with a crevice tool around the walls, dust the baseboards. So it wasn't unusual for me to work from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, just working.
Tell about your childhood and all the moving that you did and why you did that.
again, if we go back to how I got to the United States, I think that I'm pretty sure now that I've done some research, and my biological mother has gotten in touch with me from Brazil. It's been rather interesting because I've found out some details and put some things together, and I'm pretty much sure that my adopted mom, I know she brought me here illegally. I have papers to that effect, but after really thinking about it, again, I don't dwell on the past, but after really thinking about it, after we got to the United States, we moved sometimes more than every year. I mean, for 7th grade, I went to 4 different schools. So moving every year, I think my mom, we went to Canada, re-entered the country, I think legally, that was the purpose of that, but I think my mom maybe was running from immigration, not really sure, but again, she was a very interesting lady. I think at one point, I have a paper that, a senator or somebody, immigration, wrote her and said, you have a young Brazilian girl and you need to return her to Brazil, whatever, or, we need to get her. And my mom, I think, said, okay, come get her. And, we moved every year or more. So I think looking back, she probably was, hiding me, which is odd.
Where all did you live? Can you name all the places?
Oh, gosh. Well, we came into Houston. Then she sold, again, without my adopted dad's permission. She forged his name on the paper, sold their beautiful home that they were, I guess, going to retire. It was a beautiful house. I remember there was a lot of screaming and yelling about that. But again, very interesting. My adopted dad adored my mom, and she could do no wrong in his eyes. It was crazy. She could be awful, but to him it was, oh, Carabelle, I love you. You're just the most perfect, wonderful woman in the world. So it's lucky to find somebody that loves you that much. But anyway, she sold their home, took the money, and went to East. We traveled. The first thing she did when we came to the United States was we went to North Carolina because she thought that was the most beautiful place ever. And we looked for land there, but then she decided, no, it's pretty to look at, but it's too many hills and, can't do a whole lot with it. So we ended up in East Texas near a town called Sulphur Springs, Texas. And she bought a 200-acre farm. And it wasn't a farm, it was 200 acres of beautiful land. It had an ugly kind of big draw hole in there. My mom, my adopted mom, was quite the, I don't know what you'd say, she was a dreamer, and she didn't know that she couldn't do things. And we're talking back in the 70s when, women didn't do as much as they do now. And she took the money, and I remember, I think she paid like $45,000 for that piece, 200 acres of land. She designed and built a house on it. We had this ugly draw. A draw is kind of like this big hole kind of through the, kind of in the middle of the land. Well, she was looking at it, and when she did it, she says, this would make a great lake. And it was spring fed. There was a spring at the bottom of it. Well, lo and behold, she got the Corps of Engineers out there. She had them, look, because you have to know when you're building a dam with all these bulldozers and tractors, you have to have clay to make it stay. So, they came out, did the testing for her, and on a hill we had all this clay, and that's where they scraped the clay, built this huge dam. This dam, I'd like for us to go see it actually one day. It would be kind of cool, just for fun. I have pictures of it now, but she built 2 dams actually. She built up one dam, so we had a pond, then we had a dam that we could drive across, then we had another like 45-acre lake. So it was a huge lake, 45-acre lake with like another huge dam across the back of that with a spillway at the back. So she, and then she built a house. When the house was already started on top of a hill overlooking this beautiful lake, and it's still there. So she was a pretty interesting lady.
How did all the moving affect you? Like, were you a shy kid, or?
I guess God has blessed me because I really didn't realize that I was odd. I think I'm pretty adaptable. I really didn't realize until I was probably a teenager that I was the weird one moving when somebody would tell me in 5th grade or 6th grade, well, I've gone to this school from 1st to 5th grade, and I've lived in this house 6 years, I'd be like, weird. God, they're strange. I really didn't realize. I think I always looked at moving as, because I was kind of silly, goofy, tried to be funny. And so I really would look at it like, I'm going to go into this school and I'm going to be like Miss Serious. I'm not going to be this. I'm going to be a new Neyse. never worked out. I always went back to being my silly, goofy self. So I really didn't know until I was probably in my teens. I didn't think about it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it was a stress. I don't know, but I never thought about it. I didn't know I was the weird one until much later. And then it was like, oh, I went to 15 different schools for 8 years of school or something. Yeah, that was weird. That was my mom.
So did you live out of the country at all? Like where?
I visited out of the country, like in 5th grade. My dad had a job in Venezuela, so we went to, what's the name of the place? Anaco, Venezuela. He was a superintendent of oil drilling for, I think at that point it was actually, the company was a company out of, I don't remember if it was Shell Oil or a company from Tyler, Texas, Delta Drilling Company. That's who he was working for when they got me from Brazil. But anyway, he went to Venezuela and was a drilling superintendent there. So we went and we lived at the, I think they called it the SAM camp, and it stood for something, South America. I don't remember what the M was for, but anyway, in 5th grade, that was a lot of fun because I left my school in Sulphur Springs in East Texas, and we went down there for several months. And when you work for oil companies, it's kind of a neat thing. They'll build a camp for the employees, and they have all these houses there, and you're kind of have your own little neighborhood, you know, closed off sometimes by gates or whatever. So we lived at this camp, had a really nice house. Sometimes they'll provide you with a house with I remember we had a driver who drove me to school every day and only had one arm. Weird memory, right? A one-armed driver. He'd hook his arm into the steering wheel, and that's the way he drove. But hey, I'm alive, so I guess it was okay. How he did a stick shift that way, I don't know. But yeah, a Volkswagen Beetle. He would take me to school. So during that period, it was actually kind of fun because, you know, there we had a maid, so I wasn't working, doing housekeeping all the time like I did at home. And then we stayed there for like about, I don't remember how many months, but I was there and did part of 5th grade there. That was an interesting memory. Oh, and then another time we traveled out of the country to Singapore. My mom went to see my dad. It wasn't unusual for my dad to have jobs where he would be gone. So I didn't really know him very much because he might be gone on a job for 6 months and then come back home for 3 weeks and then leave again for a year. So it was usually just my mom and I. Probably why she and I went a little crazy together. But anyway, it was usually just the two of us. You know, his job was to go work, send the money home. So that was, but Singapore, we visited there for like a month. That was a really neat experience.
What did you like most about Singapore?
It was very clean, extremely clean. You could get in trouble for, you know, spitting on the street, throwing your gum on the street. Very clean place. If you travel around the world, sometimes you get into it. You know, we're very spoiled. We're used to, you know, all the sanitation and everything being, you know, clean. And Singapore was extremely, extremely clean. A lot of fun there too because, you know, I remember we had a book, and my mom was fun because she was very adventuresome, and so we got a book on the bus routes, and we literally for, you know, a quarter would get on the bus and we'd ride all the way out practically to Malaysia, to the jungle, and then see monkeys in the trees and then ride all the way back. So it was really a neat experience. I was 14 or 15 then. But we would ride around, all around Singapore and around the city to just see the sights. That was fun, and it was cheap. My mom was very budget-minded.
Would you say you were a smart kid?
Well, I wasn't a stupid kid. I guess I was a pretty smart kid. I never went around and, you know, said I was smart, but other people said I was a fairly smart kid. So I guess, you know, I tell a funny story about that. When my mom first got me, I couldn't even say hello in English. And I was not allowed to have an accent. It was pretty much, no, my daughter's not having an accent. You can't talk that way. So, you know, we would practice. You'd say it this way, kitchen, kitchen, and we would practice words, and I just was not allowed to have an accent. And so within like 2 or 3 months, I think I'm a fast language learner, I was fluent in English because I went total immersion. And my mom, I was only 7, 8 years old, and of course people would say, my gosh, how do you speak English so well after only 2 or 3 months, and how do you not have an accent? And looking back, it was funny because my mom used to tell me to tell people, oh, superior intelligence was what she had me tell people. So, that's kind of funny on her part. So imagine an 8-year-old kid, when somebody asks you something, saying superior intelligence. But yeah.
Okay, cool. And you said something about her doing an IQ test?
Yes, my mom was very interesting. I think she would have thrown me back, but the first thing we did when we went to North Carolina when I got here was she took me to this doctor friend in North Carolina, Dr. Lindsay, in a little small town. Interestingly enough, now your dad's family is from the same little small town area. They probably knew each other, which is odd to think, but he did all these IQ tests, and apparently I think if I'd have been below average, she would have thrown me back. She would have taken me to immigration and said, take her back, she's a dummy. But anyway, apparently I met the cut somewhere along the way.
Do you remember what the cut was?
I don't remember. It was above average. Again, my mom was very weird about that. I don't know.
Any
it was
range
like
there between?
it was between like 140 and 160, somewhere in there. I don't remember. But again, intelligence is, I don't have a PhD or a master's degree yet, but I think intelligence, when you measure it when you're very young, that's the most accurate, I've heard, because it's your age above your years. And let me tell you, at age 7, I had been through a lot of very, interesting things in my life, had seen a lot. I really didn't think of myself when I was 7 as a kid. I knew I was an adult. I knew, I could see people's motivations, see what was going to happen. I kind of observed people. So maybe the growing up and the conditions that I did made me, because I don't remember seeing myself as one of the kids. I was always like, no, I'm already grown up. Even though I'm in this kid's body, I know I'm an adult already. So it's kind of strange.
Speaking of languages, what languages do you know, or did you know, or along those lines?
Well, languages. Well, English, that's my native language is Portuguese. When I came to the United States, I didn't even know how to say hello, whatever, in English. And then, so I was born speaking Portuguese, and then I learned English, of course, and then I'm fluent in Spanish now. When I was young, I loved languages, though. Anybody that I would see, if they looked like they were from Japan, China, I'd be like, hey, tell me how to say this. So I made it a game of learning how to, count to 10, say hello, where's the bathroom. At one point when I was, probably college age, I used to be able to do that in like 20 languages. Now, not so good. But I still like people from other places and getting to know about them, their language, their culture. It's very interesting.
How did you get to be where you are now? Starting like teenage years.
Teenage years? Well, that's a vague question. What do you mean by that? Well, I walked in from the kitchen. No, what?
Well, college and all that. Like, how did you
college? Well, by sheer will, I think. One thing, my mom was, I think she was probably my adopted mom, mentally ill, and so it was a really rough growing up, but she also had some wonderful qualities. I'm not bitter about my childhood with her. It was not good, but at the same time, she somehow, maybe because she was at an age where she couldn't really finish college, but she had knowledge of people with 2 or 3 degrees. Imagine this woman in her 60s. I remember her sitting in bed with a legal pad and that ruler, that architect ruler that I have, and drawing at her house and learning things that, she learned about the pitch of a roof. The roofer came for the house that she built, the second house she built. Well, Mrs. Hall, what pitch do you want on this roof? And I remember her and I getting old-fashioned encyclopedia and looking up, what does that mean? Because she didn't want to say to him, I have no idea what you're talking about, the pitch of the roof. And so, by golly, she researched all night long, and then the next day she talked to him and says, well, I want the pitch to be 310 or whatever. So she was a very intelligent person, and I think she kind of instilled in me that wanting to learn. I always was a kid that loved to read, wanted to learn, wanted to know more than just, you know, the basic information. I love to read. I was the kid that, you know, got in trouble for being under the sheets or in the closet with a flashlight with my books. I love to read always, still do. And so she instilled in me, I think, that desire to go to school. And she used to call it getting your sheepskin. That's what old-fashioned people used to call getting your degree. And she used to say, you got to get your sheepskin. You got to finish school. And so although she didn't help me with school, it's kind of weird, she really put that desire in me to finish college. And I wasn't an A student because I worked all the time. And I don't even know if I would have been an A student because I'm not totally academic, but you know what? Finishing and getting that degree, I think, was just something that I had to do. I just had that, you know, so that's why I say to you guys, you know, it's not always about who's the smartest, it's the desire and the motivation and the will. And I definitely had a strong motivation to finish college.
Along those lines, when did you move out of the house and why?
I left, I stopped living with my mom when I was, I think, 16. Yeah, 16. She was very, she could be very aggressive, very physically abusive. And so she was more mentally abusive than physically abusive, actually. But I was one that, you know, was afraid of my mom, and so I was like the perfectly compliant kid because if she got angry or whatever, you know, she would be very, very hard to deal with. And so I remember when I was going into, I believe, 9th grade in Richardson, Texas to school, but I was older because I'd started school later. I should have actually been skipped a grade up, but that never happened. Because school, again, was extremely easy for me. I mean, elementary, it was like nothing, playing really, because I made all A's. But anyway, my mom was very old-fashioned in that, you know, you go to school for reading, writing, arithmetic, that's it. You don't do PE, you don't do music, you don't, you know, that's you're wasting your time. You work and you do your school and that's it. And so I remember coming home and telling her, well, my schedule arrived in the mail, and, you know, I was all excited because I had to get high school credits and I had to get, you know, the PE credits, right? And so at high school they had roller skating or ice skating. I don't even remember what it was. They had like roller skating and something else. Anyway, I just signed up for it, or whoever signed me up for it, counselor signed me up for it. And when my mom saw that, she was furious. She's like, what? You don't, you know, you're not going to school for PE, modern dance. That was it, modern dance and something else. You are not doing that. And she just went crazy. And at one point grabbed me by the throat and hit my head up against a sliding glass door. And being the smart kid that I was, I said, hey, I'm getting the heck out of Dodge. So I knew that, you know, I didn't have a car, I didn't have a, you know, a job income, so I just started looking for options and found in the paper, live in maid, live in whatever. So first job I ever had was I was a live-in babysitter. I'd always liked kids, always been very good with kids. Again, I wasn't your average 16-year-old. I was very responsible. You know, I'd lived by myself for like a month and a half when my mom went to Singapore and left me at home without a car. So I was pretty responsible, and I talked to these people on the phone, and it was kind of funny because I think they saw an opportunity too. They had 2 kids and a giant dog, and it was a very nice family. They still live here in Richardson, actually. And so I went to work for them as a live-in, you know, babysitter, housekeeper, nanny, whatever. Again, I was the type of person that if I worked for somebody, I wasn't just gonna, you know, only watch the kids and not doing everything. So they got a great deal. Because I would clean the house top to bottom, I'd start dinner, I had those kids doing stuff, so it was, and I made a whole $75 an hour, an hour.
I wish.
A week. Yeah, I wish. No, I made $75 a week, but guess what? You know what? I had my room, I had my board, I had a little TV in my room, and I started studying correspondence courses for high school so I could finish high school at that point. So that was how that started.
From there, what college did you go to?
From there, got to think about what I did next. From there, I think I lived at home for a short while, and then I quickly realized, no, that's not going to work. So then I only $10 about for a class and about $20 for books. So that was great, and it got me started. I was started out, and I was a little nervous and unsure of myself because I hadn't finished high school. I quit high school after ninth grade, but I guess my mom used to say, oh, if you can read, you can do anything. So I really took that to heart, and the only area where I had to go backwards a little bit to get some background was math, of course. And in one summer, I finished like 3 courses in what they call, I think, developmental mathematics, which they still have now. And then from there, went on to, I think I had a ton of hours at Richland, I think, just because I was kind of, I don't know, I was working and that's what I did. Finished college algebra, and then after I was finished at Richland, I applied, I remember, to Tarleton State University, and they wouldn't take me. I was like, well, gee, I can't believe it. And then I don't know why, or I think now I would think twice. I don't know what made me apply to SMU, but I figured, I think my main thing was that I worked 15 minutes away, and I thought, well, I've got my job, I can't quit my job. But I never thought about that, gee, I could move somewhere else. I guess I was, young, but I thought, well, I have my job, I have to keep my job to go to school. So I applied to SMU, and I always found it funny that SMU took me, but Tarleton State didn't. And Tarleton State somehow has me as an alumni, which is really funny. I actually had to call them recently after 30 years out of college and say, hey, I'm not an alumni, you wouldn't take me, so please remove me off your list. And I think they have. I haven't had any more mail from them. But anyway, went to SMU, and it was a rude awakening after going to community college and going to Richland. When I got to SMU, it was, I was a wreck because it was a lot harder, obviously, and but got through it, got through my 2 years, met my wonderful husband of 30 years, and got a business administration degree from SMU with a marketing emphasis.
I did not know about the marketing emphasis. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, business administration with a marketing emphasis.
Tell the story about how you met Dad, Robert Hall.
How I met Robert Hall, your dad. Well, I was dating someone older than I was when I went to SMU, and he was absolutely a perfect, wonderful guy, and I just thought, I'm in love with this guy. He's the greatest guy in the world. And I definitely, because I was not the, I always tell my kids, and they laugh, I was felt very out of place because I didn't have the preppy clothes and the nice clothes and the money and all that a lot of the students around me did. I was just this poor girl working. And, I was the girl with the polo shirt, but the polo pony had like an extra leg, the discount style. So I felt very out of place and really just kind of tried to just kind of blend in. And I never stayed in school. I had to work full time. So I'd have my class, boom, I was in my car, I was headed to work. And one time, for some reason, my good friend that worked in the same shopping center, she and I had become friends. I think that's how I applied to SMU too, is because she had applied there. Her name's Donna. Anyway, Donna was doing some sort of community service project. She was lucky. She didn't have to work as much as I did. She just did a little part-time job. But she had a community service project that she was working on with a bunch of kids for the business fraternity at SMU. And that day, again, fate, I never had extra time to just sit around. That day, she said, oh, come on, just wait for me. I'll be through with these kids in an hour, and then we can have some lunch together. Back then they had one crummy little student cafe that was nothing like it is now. So anyway, I was like, okay, I'll sit over here and try to fade into the woodwork. And, I was kind of shy. Not really shy, but I just felt out of place a lot. So anyway, I found myself a seat and I sat down and I was just reading the schedule for summer. This was in March. I was reading the summer schedule, and it was like a newspaper, and just really not paying attention to anything that was going on around me. And I look up from my schedule, and this guy comes up, and he says to me the corniest line ever. He says, and it was the summer schedule again. It was like a newspaper, and it said SMU summer schedule. And his line was, I'll never forget it. Pardon me, is that the SMU summer schedule you have there? And I kind of was like, yeah, oh, yes, it is. And then he started talking, and he said, I know all the professors. I can tell you who's good and who to take. And, he just talked, and I was like, oh, okay. And he had been sitting with a whole group of girls. And when I went to SMU, again, I had a boyfriend, and I definitely did not want to have anything to do with any of these rich, bratty SMU fraternity brats. I was just totally like, no, not ever dating a guy from SMU, just not my thing. But anyway, Robert came up, hey, is that the SMU summer schedule there? I guess that was the magic line. And started talking to me, and I remember we sat there and we talked nonstop. I think it went on for 2 hours, and his blue eyes were just, dancing in front of me, and I remember thinking, oh, he is so cute. He was blonde with blue eyes and just really cute, and I told him, I have a boyfriend, because he was really talking to me a lot, and he goes, oh, well, that's good, what's his name? And he kept talking with me, and then I was really impressed with him, because he all he could talk about was how much he talked a lot about how he loved his family, how supportive he'd had some hard times, and how they were so supportive, and how his mom was just the most wonderful person, and how much he loved his family. And I was like, oh, that's nice. I'd kind of been taught by my mom, and it's interesting, my mom and I weren't close, but yet things that your parents tell you sometimes stick with you. And I remember my mom saying, if somebody talks bad about their family and about somebody that raised them and gave them life and did what they could for them, that's just not a good character trait. And so I was really impressed. He had so many nice, wonderful things to say about his family, and I thought he was terribly adorable. But again, I had a boyfriend, so I was really not interested. But this was back before HIPAA, back before privacy and all of that was any big deal. SMU at that time had literally, they had in the bottom floor of the business school, they had a wall open, and you had these files in there, and if they wanted to deliver something to you, they'd put it in this file folder, and you'd go in the hall, and any old joke, you go in the hall and get your stuff out of your folder, but that's the way they did it back then. So anyway, I met Robert, and kept running into him all over campus. My friend and I would be walking, and of course, like young people, I'd say, oh, that guy was cute, but he was really skinny and tall. He had been sick, and I'd say, well, he's really cute, but those baggy pants have got to go, and then we'd be walking, and lo and behold, hey, here he would come. And then we'd be walking somewhere else, and there would be, hey, and I was like, wow, we run into that guy everywhere. Well, I think years later I found out that he was kind of stalking me, and found out my schedule, and just happened to be walking by when we were walking by, which was funny. But then he calls me the stalker now, because my friend and I, again, I was 21 before I went on my first date, so I was not a big dater. And at that point, I think I was 23, and she and I had gone out to eat one Friday night, and like girls do, he had told me in detail where he lived. He had the little condo by SMU. So I said to my friend, I said, oh my gosh, I know where that cute guy lives. Let's just drive by it and see what it looks like. Okay, I just, because he told me, so we're driving down the alleyway, and oh my God, who comes out? It was so embarrassing. It was broad daylight, in March. It was light outside. Who comes out his back door but Robert Hall with his dog, and it was funny. Again, I couldn't run away, I couldn't hide, because it was an alleyway, and I drove a silver Volkswagen Beetle. So we were caught, and here I was behind his apartment, and he comes out and goes, hey, what are you doing? Hey, how's it going? And we were like, oh, good, just happened to be driving down this alleyway to go home, which was like, ugh. And so he's like, oh, that's great. Hey, and I remember when I first met him, the thing that he was skinny so he could afford to do it then. He was a big peach smoothie guy at TCBY. I think he had a peach smoothie every day, And he said, hey, you guys want to go out for a peach smoothie? And she and I think we were like pretty much speechless at this point because we were so mortified that, this guy had caught us driving down the alleyway. And he asked us to go for a peach smoothie. So I remember he had Heather, the spaniel that he had at that time. He loved his doggy, and he let her walk for a second, and he took her back upstairs, put her in, and then he rode with us in my Volkswagen to the smoothie place. And so I guess our first date was Robert, Neyse, and Donna, although it wasn't an unofficial date. We just went for a peach smoothie together, so it was kind of fun. And then I guess that's how we started kind of talking more, and now he says I was stalking him, which it does appear that I was the stalker at that point, but he knew everything about where my schedule was. And he also had a girlfriend, so, when I would see him, and he was always found he was an engineering student, but you could always find him at the science library on his back with his feet out, books on his chest, sleeping. So I could always go and find him there, and I went there one time to just say hello to him, and his girlfriend was there and was very mad because he was talking to me. She was Cuban, I'm Brazilian. He apparently had a thing for women from other countries because I also met a girl named Farah from Saudi Arabia that was, hi Robert, and then when he said, oh, this is my friend Neyse, she was kind of like, oh, okay. So he had a thing for Latin and more, I guess, dark-haired, whatever, which is funny. I always thought I'd go meet and marry someone tall, dark, and handsome. Instead, I married someone light and handsome. He's blonde, blue-eyed, so I think opposites do attract. Every guy that ever liked me was blonde, blue-eyed, so destiny. So anyway, he had this girlfriend, and her name was Yvette from Cuba, and I remember when he told his parents that he was dating a girl named Neyse from Brazil. I believe the comment was, Jesus Christ, can't you find a normal American girl to go out with, Robert? So, but here we are 30 years later. His parents loved me. I loved them, but it was funny. He always liked, girls, foreign girls. So he even told me that he took Italian in high school just so he could meet this cute girl from Italy. And he says, there was a Brazilian girl in that class, and I thought she was so cute. So I guess maybe we were destined to meet. So that's how I met your dad, and then we started, and I always told him, hey, I have a boyfriend, not interested, whatever. What? Look at you. I have a boyfriend, not interested. And he's like, oh, okay, tell me about him, and I'd say, well, his name's this. And so then Robert started referring to my boyfriend as the troll. He's like, oh, he's like a troll then. And he's like, what bridge does he go under? And he would, we became friends. We didn't date, and he would call me and say, so how's the troll? It was like he was checking up on my boyfriend all the time. And I would tell him, don't call him a troll. That's not his name. He's a nice guy. So we talked for several months, I would think. I think we talked till the summer. We talked just as friends. So we met March 23rd, and it was August. It was July. I think July we went out. He asked me to go out to dinner, and kind of bad. My boyfriend what was the deal? No, I think Robert asked me to dinner, and I think I had plans with my boyfriend, and I said, okay, you know what, I can't have dinner with you. I said, but I was young and cute then, so I said, well, if you ask me to lunch, I might go. And so he said, okay, let's go to lunch. So I guess that was our first date. We went to lunch together, and again, still had the boyfriend, and Robert, in August, was going to go home I don't remember if he went home for a month. I think it was about a month. He was going home to Florida for a month, and he said, I want to have a talk with you. And I was like, okay. And we sat down, and he said, well, I'm going to Florida for a month. And he says, I really want you to think about, being my girlfriend. He said, I am gonna be gone, and I want you to choose. It's me or him. And if you're smart, you'll pick me. And at that point, I thought, well, that's a lot of nerve. Man, that guy's got some guts. I don't know. And then after I thought about it, I was like, well, I like that. He's got some guts. He said, hey, it's either me or him. And if you're smart, you'll pick me. And then talk about all the lines I fell for, right? I was like, some of his lines, I thought, gee, you have to be crazy to fall for that line. He also said, come with me, baby. We'll make beautiful music together. And I thought, you have to be nuts to fall for that. But here I am, 30 years married to the guy, so I guess it must have worked. So guys, be brave.
What jobs did you have after marrying?
After marrying or after college?
Well, you got married on your graduation day.
I got married the day after graduation day. Again, I said I'm frugal and I like to be efficient, not waste money. All his family was coming here for graduation May 18th. And so I said, hey, let's just get married. You know, let's get married the next day. So it was kind of a whirlwind crazy, a rainy day. My husband always says, Robert says his rainy days are his lucky days because that's when he married me. It was a rainy day. So we got married at the Holiday Inn, which doesn't even exist anymore, by the pool. And we had a lady minister, which made us quite wild and crazy in those days. Like, ooh, a lady minister, but we liked her, so we had her marry us. A very small wedding, very practical. We didn't have a ton of money, and I really never felt like you should, spend $50,000 on a wedding, especially if you don't have it. I didn't want to start my married life with debt or anything. His parents paid for a lot of it. They were very willing to, but I just didn't see the point. So we had a nice small wedding. Hey, the point is, it stuck, right? So it didn't need to be a huge wedding to work well. So we got married, and hey, here we are, 30 years later.
So after you graduated, you had your degree in
business administration with a marketing emphasis.
What did you do with that degree?
The first job I had was I actually worked for, back then it was called Sanger Harris, kind of like a Dillard's, Foley's. Well, we don't have Foley's anymore. Foley's used to be Macy's. All these companies have gone through different names. And I was a department manager. Excuse me. I started out as the store that they sent me to, was awful, was Arlington, Texas. So I lived near SMU, and I drove all the way to Arlington. I went on every major highway to get there to be a department manager, and it was in the dreaded, I started out in shoes, actually. I was in I was the assistant manager in shoes, and then I got this so-called promotion to go be the manager upstairs in the housewares department. Nobody wants housewares, okay? The dreaded wall of gadgets, 50,000 gadgets, and housewares is not fun. You're always restacking the boxes of stuff. But anyway, I was department manager in housewares and really didn't like it that much. At that point, Robert was working in accounting. He had an accounting finance degree, and he was working in an accounting job downtown. So when you work retail, you're working nights, you're working weekends. He had an accounting job, so he was off every night, off every weekend, every holiday. If you're in retail, there's a big sale, you're working. He was off, so it wasn't really fun for us, and I didn't like working opposite hours of him. So I had always actually secretly wanted to teach. And it's funny, when I went to college, I was very organized about it. While I was working, I met a lot of teachers, and every teacher that I asked without fail said, oh no, don't be a teacher, get a business degree. And usually I might do my own thing, but at that point I was really discouraged. Every teacher that I talked to said, oh no, get a business degree. So that's what I did. And in retrospect, if I had to do it over, I would get an education degree, because I always liked kids and teaching, and that is what I ended up doing after working in retail. I stopped. I don't remember if I quit that job or what happened, but I stopped working there, and then was looking and happened to see an ad in the newspaper, I think, when I was looking for jobs, like, oh, do you want to teach? Sure. I was like, yeah. And, well, if you have a degree, a college degree, you can get alternatively certified to teach. And so I went right away, signed up, and went through alternative certification, which is basically you do for Dallas. At that point, you did master's level classes in education, but they were desperate for teachers, especially bilingual. I was bilingual, Spanish, English, so pretty much I could have had, I don't know, maybe even an axe murderer and gotten a job. I'm not really sure. But they signed me up, put me in the class, and the fact that I was bilingual, and they still do, needed bilingual teachers. By January, I was in a bilingual classroom teaching and dying, by the way, because, that's a learned skill, but had a really rough time. I started in January with a group of first graders that had 5 substitutes, and were they a mess. And after a couple of months, I thought, oh my God, get me out of here. And then, of course, my hard head took over, and I said, oh no, this is not going to whip me. I'm going to learn what I'm doing. And I had 27 kids by myself. It was quite a bad situation. 27 first graders. But anyway, started teaching, and that's really, little kids have always been my love. So I started teaching first grade, and I do like the younger kids. So I taught bilingual for about 3 or 4 years, and then had Lana and finished the year teaching. And then after she was went back to teaching, and then when she was a year old, my husband Robert couldn't stand it that you were being cared for by somebody else, and it just made him a wreck. So when you were a year old, I started staying at home and taking care of you guys. And then a year and a half later, then we had your brother. So I had 2 little kids to take care of at home at that point.
Cool. So what other careers did you have after teaching for a while?
Well, I always wanted to have a child care center. So after teaching for a while, actually during that time too, your dad and I, Robert and I, got licensed to sell insurance. So we actually both had insurance and a Series 6 and 63, which is for selling annuities and investment products. So we both got licensed. Again, he was doing that. I only did it just because I was an at-home mom. Your brother, Elliot, was a baby, and I just felt like, wow, I want to go learn something too. I don't want to just, you start to, when you're at home with little kids, you wonder if your brain is still functional sometimes. So I did that, passed all the tests to get the Series 29, 6, and 63 for insurance. So I was licensed for all the insurance. And then, but we really didn't do that for very long. But you know what? It was, no knowledge is ever wasted. We both were glad we did it because we learned a lot. And then after that, I went back and taught again for a couple of years, and then had always wanted to own a child care center, had looked at different centers, looked with my friend Maria Montoro at child care centers, never bought one. And then finally, after that, what did I do? Well, I think back in 2005, we looked at child care centers and bought one, and it was a child care center that was in a lot of trouble, losing kids. We completely redid it, and after we owned it like 2 years, it was very successful, made good money, and then we sold it like 5 years later. And then in 2010, I got a call from the real estate guy that we had dealt with. He goes, hey, there's a child care center just down the street from you guys available for lease. And like crazy people that we are, I went down there and we looked at it, and I jumped in. I tend to be the jump in, let's go. And my husband tends to be, your dad is the, let's think about it, let's add those things, let's everything, right? So anyway, probably his way is better, but hey, we make, that's how we are well matched. I jump in, he thinks and figures and whatever. So we jumped in and started another child care center. We leased that building, and then we just sold that business last July.
What have you been doing since then?
Not a whole lot. What have I been doing since then? Well, actually, I've been somehow I've turned into the full-time caregiver and manager of my parents-in-law who live next door to us. They're both in their 80s. They're 80, about to be 84 and 88, and so they have dementia, so they need someone to kind of oversee. Thank God they live next door to us. They moved here from Florida 16 years ago, so it's a lot easier to help them next door than it would be if they're in Florida. Imagine that. I'd have to be flying. Golly, that would be tough. But anyway, I kind of oversee their care, find caregivers. In fact, today I've got to interview someone in a couple of hours, find caregivers for them. And for the last, since Thanksgiving, I've been kind of full-time in charge of sleeping with them every night, which now I realize I thought I could do that, but now it's, I have a family and I want to be at home with their son, who's the big baby. He wants me at home with him. So, but I want to be at home with my house, my kids, my family. I want to help them, but so I'm looking for a full-time caregiver so that someone can live in there and I can just be backup but not be there all the time.
So tell the story about how you met your biological mama through, how that came about. It's pretty interesting.
Well, let's see, how I met my biological mother. I haven't met her yet, unfortunately. Basically, I have a sister-in-law here in the States, my adopted brother who's in his 80s. His wife has always been quite the computer person and always, again, busy doing things, and she's very involved with Ancestry.com. And so she was always traveling all over Texas looking for, Uncle Joe's mother's sister's grave and getting details on that so she can put it on Ancestry.com. Every relative imaginable she's found, oh my gosh, we found Leon's great uncle's grandfather's grave in Podunk, Texas. So she's got graves that she's found and done all over the place, and just her hobby, and she's very good at it. She called me one day and she said, Neyse, I've got a really interesting email I'm going to send you. And so this email was from a young man named Jose, and he said, hello, I was cleaning my mess when I found a letter in a desk from an old lady. She has asked me many times to help her find her daughter. And her daughter, and he had pictures of people's license plates. I think he said he had, these people were the name Lloyd from Texas, and they had a license plate number this, and this is all the information he had. Right away I thought, okay, this is some sort of jokester, and don't give him my phone number, don't give him anything of me. And we talked about it for a little bit, and I said, well, how about this? How about if we create a different email or have him email you? And so we did. I said, I'll find out if he really knows this lady or if this is my biological mother or whatever. He told about, this lady's daughter left Brazil, 1969 or 1970, and told a little bit of the story, but I immediately thought, okay, it's some person just trying to find, trying to get information, whatever. I really thought it was some sort of joke. And so I said to her, okay, because he also lived in Sao Paulo, which is southern Brazil, and I was born and had grown up in Salvador, which is northern Brazil, so I had a lot of questions. So I said to her, well, you know what, write this guy and ask him what the woman's name is, what the daughter's name was, where did she leave Brazil from, where was she born, these things. And I just had some questions that I thought, my mother would know, but this person wouldn't. And the beautiful thing about the internet and Facebook, right away he emailed her back and said, answered all my questions. So my next email to him was, okay, you found me. And so it was kind of cool because immediately almost, thanks to Facebook and email, whatever, he was sending me pictures via the internet of my mother. My mother apparently my biological mother was very excited. So I think she got dressed and rode the railway all the way to his house so he could take pictures of her, at his house to send to me right away, and then send me pictures of my sister and her kids. And so I kind of, at that point, confirmed a lot of things, because when you're 6, 7, you kind of have these memories, but you're not sure. I remembered that I had an older brother, I thought, and then I remembered a lot of younger brothers, I thought. I was kind of sure about that. I remember I was the only girl. Well, at that point in my life, I was, because my mother was in Salvador, which is about, I think, 6 hours north of where she lives now. And again, we were very, very poor, so I had a lot of questions about, what made her go to Sao Paulo? How did she get there? Because, we didn't have enough money to eat 2 meals a day. So she said that her father and his brother were looking for her. They wanted to beat her because they thought that she had sold me. And I think looking at the situation and what is, the information I found out, I think that probably did happen. I really feel like that did, but it's okay. I mean, I think when people are really poor, they're really hungry, poor, that's how people get manipulated, and that's okay. I'm good. I'm happy I'm here because I would have never been able to, have what I have now. I have my family now, and in Brazil, because it's such a poor, ignorant country, I probably would have 10 kids by now and not know what the heck they come from. So, but anyway, my mother wrote me on, I actually have connected with my sister, Yolanda. She is about 40 years old. She has a little girl, and seems to be the one with the computer, and she has a job, and so she and I now talk back and forth. So it's been fun to learn about them and their lives, and find out that I actually have one older brother, and then the brothers that I thought I had, and then after my mother moved to Sao Paulo, she had 2 girls and I think another boy. So she's been quite quite fertile, this woman, but she was also much older. She was in her 30s. So I have then now 2 younger sisters that are probably in their 40s.
Awesome. So tell about your family now.
My family now. Well,
how did it come about?
How did it come about? Well, the usual American way. That's how it came about. Your dad and I were married for 7 years, played around a lot, did stuff, and hadn't really thought too much about having kids. We knew we wanted to, but, we just kind of having fun. And one day, his mother said, well, you and Neyse and your alternative lifestyle. And we both were like, what? Alternative lifestyle? Well, what does that mean? Like, I'm not gay. Are you gay? I'm not lesbian. Or what does alternative lifestyle mean? Well, we're talking the 80s. Okay, alternative lifestyle meant, I don't know, you're something different than the husband and wife with kids. So we said, oh, well, I guess alternative lifestyle. So it was funny. In the same year we gave up our alternative lifestyle, the married couple. We said, well, I guess since we're alternative, we better just get your basic boring lifestyle, as we said. We just thought the alternative lifestyle was funny, coming from grandma. It was like, alternative lifestyle, what does that mean? Back in the 80s, that meant you're gay or you're lesbian, or we didn't know what that meant. But anyway, we gave up our alternative lifestyle, and we were married. Of course, we've been married 7 years, so we bought a house, bought a minivan, and had a baby all in the same year. And I guess we were then now just basic and not alternative. And so that was Lana. And then she was born the day before Mother's Day, on our, right before our 8th anniversary. And then a year and a half, and everybody said, oh gosh, you have been married, you're 33 and you haven't, tried to have a child. That's going to take you years. Well, it was like the next month. And then a year and a half later, her brother Elliot was born. And then after 3 more years, we had our 3rd child, Alan Hall. And all of them were planned, were wanted. Alan's convinced that somehow he was an accident. Nobody was an accident. We actually were crazy enough to have 3 kids. And then my husband actually, I was, over 40, and he wanted to have the millennium baby, but I had to put a stop to this baby thing. So I said, no. 3 kids, and I'm in my 40s. You're going to have to do that with your next wife. So we stuck with 3 beautiful kids, and we're happy with that. They make us very proud. We have 2 that are in college. Lana's about to finish college, and then Elliot's going to school still, hoping to get a film degree maybe. And then Alan is in high school. He's a senior. He's about to graduate this summer, and he wants to go on to college. So we're happy that, our kids all have that motivation to go to school. They've all been good kids. We haven't had anybody, go to jail, get on drugs, get arrested. So I guess we're doing pretty well at this point. No major car accidents, except for Lana. But anyway, just small little accidents. But, so far so good. So we're very proud of them. They've been very good kids. They've been, they're very, all three, I think, one thing that we can say about us is that we're very open people, open to other people, open to new ideas. We've never forced our kids to, they went to church when they were young, but now if one of them tells me, hey, I'm gay, I'm lesbian, I'm Jewish, I'm Muslim, I'm whatever I want to be, we're going to go with it because we really feel strongly that, kids after a certain age have to determine, as long as you're a good person and you're helping other people, doing what's right in life, you know what? You pick the church you want to go to. You pick a good person that you're going to go out with, but we don't care who that person is, as long as it's a good person. And so we're really proud. I think one of the proudest things that I can say, and also the most aggravating and annoying thing about our kids, but it's also proud, is that they're individuals, they're their own people. They don't, they have their own opinions about things. They don't even go with just what I say. They have their own opinions, and they're very unique individuals.
Aggravating, huh?
It can be aggravating at times, but it's a good thing, because sometimes you want somebody to think about the way you think about something and believe what I'm saying, and then
I still
you
think
guys
we're very
quite
similar,
often,
though. Like with the music.
we're similar.
And stuff.
We have similar values.
Everyone loves music. You can.
Well, yes, we're a very musical family. Everyone loves music, and that's, I'm sitting by a piano. We love to play music, hear music, sing. I think we're a very weirdly close family. Again, what you're used to, you don't find weird, but I've had friends say, so your 3 kids go out with you every Friday night? I'm like, yeah, I didn't know that was weird. Yeah, that's weird. My kids want to be like, oh, I'm out of here, I'm gone. Our kids are all, 2 of them went off to college, came back the next semester. So
UNT, yeah.
A little weird, but hey, whatever. We're I guess we're a pretty close family in a way. No, that doesn't mean that there's not some crazy fighting and things get thrown. No, but yet, I think that's kind of families, and that you love somebody, because then it's like over and we move on. So, but no, they're all individuals. Everybody's not a carbon copy of me or their dad. They're all their own persons, and I like that.
Who's the most similar to you, and who's the most different from you and Dad? What would you say?
Oh, that's a tough one, because you all have similarities. I don't know. That's a tough one. In some ways, Elliot may be most similar to me, but I don't know. I mean, you're all very different. Sometimes I see his not so great qualities and I think, ugh, that's just like me. He has that kind of, gets quiet and gets, what's the word I'm looking for?
Stubborn.
Yeah, that's stubborn. He gets mad and it's like he goes around moping, and doesn't give up on it. I'm kind of that way. I kind of, I don't think I'm the
Goes back to
person
the car, not driving it for 7 months. That reminds me of Elliot.
Exactly, yeah. I'm just going to let that car sit there. I'm not going to get hit in the head. I don't know. That's a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, I see sometimes unfortunately in all your kids, you'll see your bad qualities and you think, oh man, don't be that way. That's what I would do. But hopefully you all have, I think, a fair amount of resilience. I think I'm very resilient, so I see that in you. That's a good thing. All of you. Lana may have her screaming fit about something, and then the next day it's okay, let's go to school, get my hair done. So that's a good thing. Life is full of things that happen, and you got to just pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and start all over again, as the song says. So
Who's most like Dad?
Who's most like Dad? That's tough, because I see qualities. I mean, I see qualities, I see qualities that you have that reminds me of your dad. And then I see some that are like me. I mean, you have sometimes his, you're messy like him. Let's see, no. No, you do. You all have, I think you're all a combination, but again, like I said at the beginning, you're individuals. You see qualities in people, and I think we all as human beings try to attribute them to, oh, that's like this or that's like that, but, I think we all have qualities. Who do you think is the most like Dad or like me? That's tough.
Yeah,
you're like me in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Your
I think
goofy, silly
yeah.
side sometimes I think is like me. Okay, I think you have a side like me that's, that kind of trying to take care of people and kind of, be a little silly. But then I see Elliot sometimes, he's very sarcastic, but yet he can be really, silly. And sometimes you kind of jump with his silly. It's like, what? Yeah, what is that? But then he has that, I don't think of myself as serious.
Alan is his
Alan
own.
is a whole ball of wax, his own person. But, I do see though, Alan has been through a lot and he's overcome a lot.
Resilient, yeah.
So he, I think having resilience, that's what I read. And you get to be my age, you read about how you can live longer. And a lot of people that live a long time, they're resilient. They move on, they move forward. It may be a woman that loses her husband, but you know what? She's a widow for 30 years and she's moving on with her life. She didn't just shrivel up and die. I think you have to be resilient, move forward, always move forward. Doesn't matter what it is, you've got to move forward.
Is that the most important message you would say? What would you want to leave us with? Something?
Us, meaning my kids?
Just the interview.
The interview?
Any thoughts?
Enjoy life. Enjoy the simple things. I'm always telling you guys, if you can enjoy, the simple little things, you're not going to be able to enjoy the huge, big things. Right now I'm looking outside and every spring I look at that light green and I think, I can't find that in a crayon. There's no, God created that just for me to see. There's no other green that I can see that looks the same as that beautiful light green leaf on a tree. And when I'm walking, I see that and I think, wow, that's beautiful. It's there, it's for me to enjoy, and I truly try to take that in. I enjoy the small things, maybe because of what I came from. Not knowing if I'm going to get a meal that day. You see how I enjoy my food. It's, smell that, oh boy, that's why I'm always on a diet too. But, enjoy the little things, because I think if you don't have that quality that you can enjoy the little things, you'll never enjoy the huge things. Enjoy where you are now, today. Love the people around you. Give a little bit of yourself to them, but not too much. But, love the people that you're around. Love where you are now, here, today. And then plan for the future. Plan for, having times. I think that's what our family, we enjoy our times together. Yes, there's stressful times together, it can be tough, but we really enjoy, that's one of my things. That's where you and your dad and I are a little bit different, because he thinks about retirement, and he's like, oh, I can get a table, and I can tinker with this, and make that, and yada yada, and I'm thinking, ooh, I can drive out to the east and see this, and I can go over there and see that, and I want to take the kids, go here and go there, so, but somehow together you kind of meld those things, and you make a couple, and you got to find the good in everyone. That's another thing I would say, is always look for the good in others, the good in situations, even the worst situations, good comes out of it. I really truly believe that.
Well, I want to thank you for the interview. Thank you very much for your long day.
I didn't know it was going to be this long. Thank you. I'm flattered. Thank you. Hope it goes well.
Awesome. Thank you, Mom.
It's Mrs. Hall to you, ma'am.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Well,
Elliot, we're done. Thank you. I'll expect my check in the mail.